Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of the Griswold Select podcast. I'm Matt Danieluk, your host and the Democratic nominee for selectman in the town of Griswold. Today, I'm joined by the 4 Democratic nominees for the Board of Education: Terry Cholewa, Stuart Norman, Kim Neilson, and Eileen Ego. Thanks for listening. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. I am joined by the 4 Democratic candidates for the Board of Education in the town of Griswold: Kim Neilson, Stuart Norman, Terry Cholewa, Eileen Ego. Thank you for being here with me today.
Of course. Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks. Yeah.
Absolutely. So the first thing I want to do is get Stuart here, our veteran member, to give us a little insight into what is the role of the Board of Education for our listeners anyway.
I think it's trying, I know it's trying to make school better for our kids, make our kids so that if they want to go to college, we're opening up doors for them to do it. If they're trying to get jobs, we're preparing them for the job thing. That's our job. It's becoming more and more complicated all the time. But our job is to try to make our kids successful.
I love that.
Yeah.
Terry, you were appointed to fill a vacancy on the board through November, so you're getting your feet wet as well. Playing kind of off of Stuart and his feeling, what do you feel about that in the role of the board, and then also some of the challenges that he mentioned as things change in the school system?
Sure. I'm brand new, right? So I feel like I'm learning from everyone that has come before me. But as a community member, as a parent, as a former staff member,
Mhm.
I see the Board of Ed as supporting families, supporting our students, supporting faculty and admin so that we can create the best environment for our students to be the best version of themselves. So to Stuart's point, if we have a kid who wants to go to Ivy League or community college, there's a space for them. And they have been prepared to the best of our ability to rise to that occasion. If we have a kid who wants to go straight into the military or EB,
Mhm.
we have given them a path to be able to be prepared for that situation. I think that all of our kids come to the world with gifts,
Mhm.
and the role of education is to support that and give them the opportunity to just flourish.
Love that.
Absolutely.
Cool. Perfect.
Kim, you've done a fair amount of volunteering. We've been side by side with PTO stuff for the last couple of years. So I know what you've put in from a parent's perspective purely. How do you feel about, because we've attended some Board of Ed meetings and stuff like that, maybe the way that some of those discussions and some of the role of the board is actually applied in the school system, having graduated 2 seniors from Griswold High School, and they've been there the whole time. What are you?
Yes, I think they've led a great foundation for our kids. I have 2 that graduated. They had received a great education from Griswold, and it needs to continue. And we need to support that from the beginning, too. I think it starts in elementary school with early education, and some initiatives that we need to start with there.
Awesome. Eileen, I'm gonna get you involved in this one too. Speaking more to the role, how do you think we can maybe evolve the role of the Board of Education in terms of how it applies to our school system and our kids, and also the taxpayers? Because everything about our budget is funded by the town.
Yeah, so I've not served on the Board of Ed before.
Mhm.
Been to plenty of Board of Ed meetings in the past, but as part of my preparation for the campaign, I did some reading on, the actual role of the Board of Ed, and it was really interesting to me. The Board of Ed is actually sort of an arm of the state government. I mean, we're here um, in order to enforce and make sure that state laws and regulations around education are enforced within the town, and balancing that with the desires and the wishes of the taxpayers and the parents and the students and the teachers, and how to ensure that we're in conformance with all these state regulations, but we're also addressing the needs and the desires of the local folks. It's a balancing act. It's going to be interesting. Very
And I
interesting.
Thank you. And we're going to get more personal and introduce you guys a little bit more to the listeners, but I did just want to kind of jump in on some of the basic topics first. And something I was going to bring in later that I was just thinking about as you were talking about it was we do have the What Matters to You Google form out on the website. It's been shared on the DTC Facebook page, and we have gotten quite a few responses. And I'm not going to read the exact verbiage of some of the responses because largely those things were pretty negative. And a couple of the concerns seems to be that perhaps we were spending too much money on education, on the schools, or putting too much money into the school system. I think I know how I feel about that. But Terry, I'd like to start with you. What are your thoughts on somebody that comes to you and genuinely that lives in this town that really feels their perspective, what they know, as we are putting too much of our town tax dollars into our school system?
Yeah. I do feel that ultimately we have a responsibility to the folks who live in this town because listen, I live here and my parents live here and they're retired. And so I have complete empathy and understanding when someone is faced with the hardship of, do I stay in the house I've lived in for 40 years, but I can't afford the taxes, right? The system is broken. And we unfortunately have to live within the system. We currently have a system that relies on property taxes in order for us to educate our children by and large, right? So I while I have empathy and I think that we absolutely have to be fiscally responsible, I also think that, we have an obligation as a district to reach out and find as many grants that are available to us to help us make ends meet in order to provide the opportunities for our kids. Last night at the Board of Education meeting, Superintendent McKenna talked about 2 new grants that just came into the I won't call it the budget, but came into the district to allow us to offer some programming that otherwise we wouldn't be able to do. So, I think Griswold does a really great job of educating our students with the money that we are able to put together, right? We have this pot of money and this is what we have to do with it. My kids graduated from Griswold. And it was, to Kim's point, a great foundation. I want that to continue. My kids are grown. I want that to happen for my grandchildren, right? But I also feel as though we have to be mindful, for sure, and be careful not to waste things, right? We all have a wish list. I have a wish list at my house, but we have to plan accordingly, set goals, and have a plan to be able to make it work without creating too much of a hardship on taxpayers.
Yeah. Do you want to elaborate on the school system doing a lot with a little, as Terry was just talking about?
Absolutely. And I think every time there's a budget cut, the teachers rally. They stand up. They persevere. You never hear the students saying how it affected them. Sometimes the sports or small club programs. The teachers rally around. They do everything they can for our students. And the area districts know that as well because their school systems aren't as strong with their educators as ours is. Our district is known for the great educators, how they get along, their administration. And not all school districts are like that.
That's true. And Stuart, in your wealth of experience, we'll talk about that more, but how do you feel the board discussion about, because sending students from sending towns is really important, right? And I think because surrounding towns know that we have a really strong school system, most especially our special education, how do you feel that conversation can evolve as a board now?
Well, a part of what the townspeople hopefully understand is that the Griswold Board of Ed brings in a tremendous amount of income because of the tuition that we have. We bring in millions of dollars. Um, some people get frustrated because they put us all this. Everybody has to take courses, has to take the test, special ed and everything else, and that just sort of gets ground in how does Griswold schools doing. But it's because everybody got tested, and it's actually considering that everybody's tested and we have so many special ed kids. And I'm proud of the education that we give to these kids and that parents want their kids to come here because we can give them the kind of care they need to exceed. I mean, special ed doesn't, it's not what it was when I went to school in the 50s and 60s.
Mm-hmm.
It's a totally different thing, and it's important, and it makes kids an important part of our society too, and that's what we're trying to do. So, because everybody gets lumped into one big thing as to how the school is doing, it doesn't look like we're doing quite as well. But we always seem to be able to get kids who want to go to Ivy League colleges to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Kids who want to get jobs at EB and stuff to be able to do that. And that's what it's about, to be able to have our kids be able to move forward and have a full life.
To
Absolutely.
succeed with a foundation.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think that is largely what our school system aims to be, is that foundation. And I think, and Eileen, maybe you can speak a little bit to this too, because I think, how do we continue to grow? And now, Stuart, am I understanding it correctly? If the school brings in more tuition money, that doesn't necessarily just go back to the school budget. It goes to the general town fund and then has to get reallocated the following budget year, correct? Sort of. Okay.
What happens when we put the budget forward is we're given so much money to spend.
Mhm.
If we wind up bringing more income in than we told the Board of Finance and the town that we were going to be bringing in, that extra income goes into the town reserves.
Mhm.
Okay. So it's up to us. And it's one of the things I feel that we've failed on. It's up to us to put a real figure out there as to what the income is going to be. There's been a fear on the board that, well, if we say more than we really get, will the Board of Finance, respect what we have to say in the future? My feeling is, if we always underestimate what we're going to get and then become in last minute, oh, by the way, we found out we're going to get more, that the Board of Finance, which is really the ones who fix our budget and what they sent to the town meeting, isn't going to have faith in our numbers. And we have to do our best to get that faith in our numbers.
So if that almost feels like an advocacy conversation, right? And Eileen, I know this is something that we've talked a little bit about in terms of, like, I know inclusivity is really an important thing for you. That was part of the bio that we put up. So from an advocacy perspective, just within the board, how do you think you could maybe encourage more of that, more of those conversations? Maybe it's more interdepartmental conversations between the Board of Education, the Board of Finance, the Board of Selectmen, whoever needs to be involved. And how do you see that as a part of your goals for making a more inclusive atmosphere?
Yeah, so I'm a big listener. I think it starts with listening. I think everybody has things that are worth hearing and ideas that will contribute to the best solution. And I think we'll have to work together towards that solution. I don't think there's, just because somebody's on the Board of Finance or some of the Board of Ed, we're not adversaries, right?
Mhm.
We're working together for the same goal, right? Yeah, and I think it's important that you talk about inclusivity. I think the kids need to feel like they are represented at the school, that they're heard at the school, that they're seen. Yeah, I think it starts with that. That's very basic.
Yeah. And I think that is something that we can improve on, just in my opinion. And I think that is why it's great that we have, I'm really grateful that Stuart's here with us and running to fill a 2-year seat. But we have 3 brand new candidates here who haven't served before, and Terry's just getting started with her appointment, and getting some experience, which is awesome prior to the election. But I want to get to know you guys a little bit better so that the town gets to know you a little bit better. So Kim, I'm going to start with you. Give us a little bit of your background in the town of Griswold, how you've been around the school, and how you ended up running for the Board of Education this term.
So I'm a 25-year resident.
Mhm.
Attended events around town before we even had children, so we could see what was going on. We knew what we were getting into. Then we had children, and they started in the school, and they needed help, and they asked for donations and volunteer time, and you start a little bit, and then before you know it, you're on committees and donating a lot of time
Mhm.
and supporting the staff and the students. It's a community effort, really. And I've been proud to do so. I've enjoyed it. I was nominated and named Volunteer of the Year
That's right.
last year. So that was pretty exciting. And I'm happy, and it's a civic duty to help and support your community and be part of it.
And what a perfect attitude for somebody running for Board of Education, in my opinion. So thank you for that. And Eileen, let's get a little bit of your background.
Sure. Also a 20+ year resident of Griswold. Raised 2 daughters here. They went through Griswold Public Schools. I actually did a fair amount of work with the schools before I even moved to Griswold. When I was still living in Norwich, I came and did some career day talks centered around, encouraging girls and minority students to go into engineering. 40 years ago, when I began my career as a civil engineer, there were very few female engineers. And so that was sort of almost like a speaking tour that I was doing at that time, going around encouraging underrepresented demographics to go into engineering, right? So, and then, several years later, we end up moving here. Like Kim said, the girls got involved in activities, so I did too. I was a Girl Scout leader. I was a Sunday school teacher. I helped Ryan run the middle school girls rec basketball program for several years. Once the kids started playing sports in middle school and high school, worked to support that. I ran the concession stand for the girls basketball team for many years. I was a team photographer for the lacrosse team and ran all their fundraising efforts. And now the kids have graduated, moved on. I retired in February. 38 years career with the Connecticut DOT, and I'm looking for ways to continue that community involvement, separate from the kids' activities. So Lori Sorter hit me up to be on the Board of Ed, and she's a little hard to say no to. So
That is the truth. That is the truth about it.
And I'm looking forward to learning a lot.
That's awesome. I couldn't be more excited about it, honestly. And when I saw you were there, and obviously I had never really met you until you came in, but I've always seen you around, and I've recognized your face and the time that you've put in, and it's just, that's what we need so much of, is just people who have been in the periphery of the school system, that have had the experience of being a teacher or a volunteer or having kids, being a parent, going through the school system. And so, Terry, when you and I first talked, you asked me the question that everybody in this town asks me, which is, which one are you related to? which one's your dad? And so I know you've been around for a long time as well. So give us a little bit of your background, and most specifically, what drew you to running for Board of Ed, and also for putting your name in to be to finish out this term through November, to fill a vacancy on the board.
Sure. So it's interesting because on my way here, I knew this was going to be a question, and I'm like, it's got to be short. It's got to be short. But I feel like I've come full circle. I graduated from Griswold High School, and my children graduated from, my husband attended Griswold High School. My children graduated. Now my grandchildren are, my grandson is in Griswold Public Schools. And so there's a pretty long connection there. Very proud to be a Wolverine. I feel like once a Wolverine, always a Wolverine. And it has given me and my family so much that to be able to give back in any capacity, I feel like is the right thing to do.
Mhm.
So like these guys, I started volunteering when my kids came to school here, and then found myself more and more involved, whether it was running the concession stand for Griswold Youth Soccer or volunteering for marketing and makeup crew for Griswold High School for a lot of years. And same Parent Advisory Council, Project Safe Grad, like all the things that happen that provide opportunity for our kids, right? We got to take a little bit of responsibility in helping that to happen, right? And then I worked for Griswold Public Schools for 17 years.
Mhm.
I started off in the high school running the Career Center and doing transition services for our exceptional students.
Awesome.
Loved every minute of it.
Mhm.
But was caught up in a situation with a tough budget year.
Yeah.
And I had to make some career choices. And so I went over to the middle school and continued in that role, couple different situations. Loved it. I really thought I would write out my career there, but then an opportunity presented itself that I couldn't pass up. And so I retired from Griswold, went to work in another district.
Mhm.
And by doing so, it allowed me to be able to run for the Board of Education. So, my hope is to continue to give back to this community that I love so much. And if I can just help some people to provide a great education for our kids and support all the people who believe in providing a great education for our kids, that I'm really happy. And I feel so humbled to be allowed to do so.
And I think that's a common theme, especially with this group, is the feeling of fulfillment in being able to give more, right? There's a group of people who has given a lot, and you're like, okay, what's the next thing I can do to give back to this thing that I care so much about?
Yeah.
Stuart, everybody knows who you are. You've been around a long time, but I myself was sitting there reading your bio, and I was like, oh, I didn't know that, Stuart grew up on a dairy farm. So give us a little bit of your background and how you came back to us for another 2-year term for the Board of Ed this round.
Okay. Born in Griswold on a dairy farm, as you've already pointed out. I know how to milk cows. My grandfather, Norman, had a dairy, and in that dairy, I learned how to process milk, pasteurize milk, bottle milk. I delivered milk. I mean, it's sometimes when I talk to somebody, I say, oh, yeah, I delivered milk to your house. It's and I went through the Griswold school system.
Mhm.
And probably I first got interested in the Board of Ed because I had teachers who wouldn't let me goof off. Well, not totally goof off. I mean, I still went about it if I could. But they pushed me. And because they pushed me, it allowed me to go to college, it allowed me to go to law school. And that was initially why I got on the Board of Ed in the 70s, and it's why I'm on the Board of Ed now. Sometimes I wish, and I've expressed this wish, that we would bring graduates back to a Board of Ed meeting and talk about what Griswold did for them and what they're doing now. Because I think we sit there and we get used to just yay, nay. And it would be good for us to see how we made a difference so that we go on. Because the Board of Ed, change doesn't happen quickly. I remember one of the things that I pushed for years was to try to get 3 schools aligned so that if we had a younger person who could be doing algebra at the high school, they could go to the high school and do it. And it took a very long time, and I got frustrated, and I bring it up every once in a while, but it happened. And the fact that we have those 3 schools there on the same campus and can do it, I mean, that's unique. There are not a lot of communities that have that. As a Board of Ed member too, and having been raised on a farm, when taxes get raised, I understand why people resent it. Because if they're going to pay their taxes and they have to if they want to keep their house, it's other things can't happen. Maybe you don't get that pair of shoes for the child, or we're not eating steak, and we're not eating meat.
Right.
It's so when we do a budget, there's an angst that goes on with me, because as an attorney in town, I've had people sit in my office who are selling houses because their homes that they've lived in for 40 years because they can't afford to pay the taxes anymore. So as a Board of Ed member, I don't just sit there and think, well, like it or lump it, we're going to raise your taxes. That's never gone through my head. And most of the other board members, I think, feel the same way. So it's for me, because I had teachers pushing me, I got on the Board of Ed because I felt it was a way to give back.
And that is the through line with this group, both the veteran and the new members running for these seats. So, Eileen, I want to talk about how do you envision the future for our Griswold Public School system, and is there things specifically that you see from your perspective that we should be working towards or could be working towards down the road?
Yeah. So I serve on the Perkins Grant Advisory Board, which distributes grant money for career and technical education. And I am blown away when I go to those meetings and I hear some of the programs that we're able to offer. Um, the manufacturing pipeline that it's a partnership between the Griswold High School and several partners in manufacturing and defense industry. So kids who are not necessarily looking to go to college can graduate and immediately go to work at Electric Boat or Sikorsky, or in skilled, high-paying jobs with great benefits. It's amazing, right? The Nexus Lab, right, which was the state-of-the-art computer lab when it was created in I think 2021, first in the country of that caliber, right? It forms the foundation of our our animation classes and our video game design classes and our CAD classes, where students are able to graduate Griswold High School with certificates in various levels of CAD. And that's amazing to get out of high school with that, right? We just redid the classroom, on the other side, we redid the classroom for early childhood education and care. Kids can graduate with a CNA certificate. So preparing, yes, the college prep work is important, but the fact that we have all these other options for students who maybe aren't college bound, I think is something we're doing really well, exceedingly well, and I think we should continue to do that into the future.
That's awesome. That's a great thing to look forward to. Kim, do you have some thoughts as well on the future of the Griswold Public School system and some things that we could maybe be aiming for?
Yes, early education. I think we need to start there. I think a lot of young parents need the support that they may not be getting elsewhere, and it could happen from the community, not just the school, but involve community members to help out with that, right? And I also would like to see a collaboration with Sacred Heart, which is stationed at the high school, with the teachers to get their advanced certificates that they need to teach the courses that our students need to succeed.
So building it at both levels, from
Yes.
the teachers in their own growth to be able to give more to our students, and then to support the families that need that as well. How about you, Terry? What are your thoughts on that? Especially, I think that Kim brought up how we can better support our young families through the school system.
Yeah, I think to both of your points, Griswold is unique, and I'm sure Stuart had a lot to do with this over the years. There was a long time in education where suddenly we switched gears from a preparation to get out into the world and do your thing to everybody was supposed to go to college. And we have eased back on that a little bit. in education in general. But what Griswold has always held on to, and I'm so proud of our community for doing this, is we've kept all of our CTE courses intact. We've allowed kids other pathways to be able to reach their goals. When other schools were doing away with humanities and arts, we were making sure that our kids who were in music and wanted to pursue, advanced art classes and those kinds of things, we kept that intact for our students. And I'm really hopeful that that never goes away, that we stay unique in having, we're living in a global society. We have to be mindful of that, but we also have to know how to take care of our own kids in our own community, like what works great for our population. And I think that, Griswold has done a really nice job of that over the years. To Kim's point, early education, we have always struggled in this town with having enough spots for our kids. My own grandson didn't go to preschool in Griswold. He went to Voluntown because of a grant, because there was not a spot for him in the 3-year-old program. Could have gone in 4, but at that point, our family was comfortable with what was being offered, thought the program was excellent, and so we kept him there. So he started kindergarten in Griswold, which has been a great transition. A lot of wonderful things happening, but for families who don't have transportation to drive out to another community, for families who don't have the options or the needs to be able to do a half-day program because of work or other commitments, I think that we really have to be mindful. All of the research shows the sooner we can allow children to develop in a program that's designed for 3 and 4-year-olds. We don't want 3 and 4-year-olds in little kindergarten classes.
Right.
We want children playing and reading and building social skills and gaining confidence and doing all those things. The more that we can support that, long term, that is huge for our community. It allows parents choices. Maybe they can have 2 parents working because now someone is taking care of, the piece about, well, where's the 3-year-old going to go for a half day or whatever the case may be. I think it allows us choices. And so, yes, that costs money, right? That's a fact. But what's the payoff down the road? That and the piece about our kids being able to earn college credit, AP classes, like if families don't have to pay for those courses when our graduates leave us because they've earned 14 credits through Griswold High School and colleges are accepting those credits, that is a huge win for families, right? And so when we talk about increased taxes, it's hard on the front end. But what is the payoff down the road for both our kids and our families? I think it's huge.
And I don't think that you'll find any pushback really from this particular group. Like I've already publicly said that I don't think there's ever too much money spent on education. But this isn't really about me. So Stuart, what is the Board of Education able to do for itself to try and not just grants, but are there conversations about ways that we can generate more funds for the school from within our own district without sending towns to pay us tuition, without applying for grants? Are there programs that we can utilize to maybe be able to offer full day preschool to all of our families that need it instead of having to have a certain number of spots based on funding?
We hear about programs, and sometimes you get involved in a program and then it disappears. That happens. Yeah, you're shaking your head. It happens far too frequently. And you have to be looking, and it's very competitive. And something as simple, and when Terry was speaking, I was just thinking of our lunch program. That was a program that before our food director came there that we have now, we used to have to put money into every year. He now puts money back into the school system. And not because he's overcharging, but because he knows how to buy food. He knows how to cook food, prepare food. You're not just buying a prepared food and steaming it and sliding it over to the kids. You're making something that's good to eat,
Mhm.
good for the kids. And he's actually making money there. And that is something, when he does his presentation for what his budget is going to be, I make a point of thanking him every year because it's just, it's one of those things I've celebrated. It sounds sort of silly, but if you tasted some good food, it can change your day. So
Yeah.
True story.
and that's one of the things that they don't talk about at Griswold excelling at, but we do, and it's huge. And I got off.
No,
Course,
no, but
yeah.
that's great insight because I wouldn't have known that from a budgetary, but that's what we're talking about. That is the school board taking action, right? That's a position that exists where we can now, instead of having that be a net negative from a financial perspective, it's a net positive, which allows us to use those funds that we would otherwise have allocated there elsewhere, right? And that's what we're talking about. The only thing I would ask you maybe to go further on to my original question was, is there more that we could do to build on that? Because it feels like, to me, from my perspective and in what I care about for my position, is I want to find ways to increase the money that we spend in this town on education, on our seniors, on infrastructure and development, but without further burdening the taxpayers. Right. That's the goal. So is there a way that the school board can model that as well?
Well, you talk about grants, but they're not always there, and you can't always count on them. They're competitive. And I'm not always quite sure I understand how that scale works in the competition. I think, quite honestly, just making our schools as good as we can. The tuition that students that come here and attract them. One of the things that I've talked about is, when we go out to schools that send kids here, that we have some of our kids there also. And maybe some of the kids who are in college or have a job at EB who talk about how Griswold prepared them for it. I don't think that happens very often. You only get a certain amount of time. But I think that's critical when you're talking about what the Griswold school system is as to our success. And I don't think we hear enough about our success and let other districts know about it, because I think that's how you attract tuition students. And and yes, if you get a lot of them, you're going to have more teachers. But basically, that expands what's available to all the kids.
Mhm.
So you don't just think of it as money out. It's how do we get better?
Yeah. Always improving. So shifting gears a little bit here, and I know you'll have some thoughts on this. How can we, as you guys, as the Board of Education, right, and then the school system as a whole, how can we drive more involvement from our community in our school system? As you know, it is difficult to get people to volunteer. How do we get more involvement from our community?
I think it starts with the kids and show them what they get out of it, to encourage their parents to be there more. They're the success. So they need to show their parents, their grandparents, their aunt and uncles, whomever it is that has the time to come and be part of the community. And I think it starts with them.
I agree, and I hope that's something that we can focus on going forward. All of us, I know it's something that we care about, as parents too, and as volunteers. What do you think, Eileen? Are there some ways that we could maybe drive a little more community involvement? Is that something that the board could talk
Absolutely.
about?
Yeah. I think we need to meet people where they are. Parents are really busy. Kids are busy, parents are busy. I think we need to take advantage of social media, more of what we're doing here, right? Put together like short snippets, memes, even, if you will. I mean, that's how people communicate, with good or bad or indifferent, right? People are on their phones and they're looking at memes, and those are the things that get, circulated. If we could find a way to, exploit that and let people know what's going on in the schools through social media, what's happening at meetings in very concise, short easy to access, messages to people and get them excited about it. Like I said, I mean, I go to these meetings and I'm blown away at what we're offering, and most people don't know that we're offering that at the school. I think if they did, they would be excited to support it.
Go ahead, elaborate on that. I see it. You're shaking your head.
I feel like I've been around for a while, right? And I agree with you. We can always do more. I think that we've grown exponentially, quite honestly, in recent years with our marketing, thanks to Kayla.
Yeah.
She was a brilliant hire in this community. She's great at her job, but there's always room for some grace and a sense of belonging.
Mhm.
I think one of the things that I'm passionate about, and I know you guys are too, is that we all have different backgrounds. And we have parents who hated their high school career.
Mhm.
And so coming back to Griswold High School or coming to a high school in general, it's difficult because of the feels that they feel sometimes.
Mhm.
And so how do we help families, help students who maybe education hasn't been a priority because they're just hardworking, you know, um, get it done kind of people, and the world has changed, right? My grandfather didn't graduate from high school. He went to work at 12 years old. He was a commercial fisherman. I come from I'm sure you in agriculture have family members in the same way, right? And so everyone brings something different to the community, and no judging. Let's just all work together. Like, you bring your talents to the table. We may not always disagree or agree,
Mhm.
but in the end, parents love their kids.
Yep.
And they want what's best for them. And so creating a respectful environment where everybody has that sense of belonging, feels comfortable standing up at a Board of Ed meeting and sharing their thoughts or their concerns without feeling like they can't do that. That's important, right? And I think that sometimes we're all human.
Yeah.
And sometimes we get a little rattled and we say things maybe we shouldn't say publicly. I've done it myself, right? But we have to understand, like, that we are all community and we all are working together to create an environment that's best for our children and for our staff members and for our volunteers, and just continuing to give space for differences has to be a priority, right?
Yeah, and I think you touched on something that I know Eileen's talked a lot about in terms of how can the Board of Education, from your perspective, for what your goals are as a board member, be better listeners? Because that's something that we've talked a lot about.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think they need models for that, and I'm prepared to be that model. I really am. This is something that's important to me personally, and anybody that's interacted with me on Facebook knows that it's not about politics for me. It's not whether you're a Democrat or Republican or an independent, or whether you're a farmer or somebody that works at EB or it's everybody has something to contribute, right? And the best solutions come when we take the best ideas from everybody, regardless of where they come from, right? And we have to create an environment where that is respected and appreciated. And yeah, I'm ready to show you the way.
Running a campaign on really good listening skills, it feels like a really important thing, because I think that's why I gravitated to Tina initially, to be honest with you, is I felt the entire time that we talked about anything that she was completely attentive. And I mean, I can't say that that's the case in every situation in life, or even most situations in life. You're right. We keep talking about everyone's so busy, and sometimes it feels a little bit like, and maybe you can speak to this, Stuart, we're just trying to get through some of these meetings sometimes. You know what I mean? It's a night. We've had a long week. Maybe we talked about all these issues 20 times. Is there room for growth in that sense, in the way that I think maybe some fresh blood is the thing that helps to change that? Do you think that that's a possibility?
As I listen to these three people here today, I would love to see them on the Board of Ed if I get back on, and that's not But I would still love to see him on the Board of Ed, whether I'm on there or not. The fresh blood usually brings some enthusiasm with it. It brings questions. There are no dumb questions. I mean, we've all heard that throughout school. There are no dumb questions, and I would like more questions to be asked at Board of Ed meetings, quite honestly. They didn't, sometimes they didn't go through quite so smoothly as they do, it's, I hope all four of us can get on there. I think it would be fun for me again. It's been a long time since it's been fun.
Mhm.
And I'd love to have fun on the Board of Ed again.
I think that's great, and you led me right into my next thing, and maybe my last thing, because we've gone on a little while. But just final thoughts from each of you, and that feels like a perfect spot, unless you have anything else that you want to share, Stuart, with our listeners or with the town, in terms of what you want them to know. What's your message?
Quite honestly, my message is look at the people who are here. I think we all care about your children. I'm convinced as we sit here that we all understand what a budget is, where we have to figure out, I mean, we go into a grocery store, we actually look at prices, and we make decisions based upon those prices. And it would be exciting to be the four of us on the Griswold Board of Ed.
Awesome.
It
Kim?
would be exciting for all of us. Yeah, absolutely. We have some great ideas. We've proven our loyalty to the town, to the community. And I think we have a lot to offer.
Agreed.
I think we also really respect everybody who works in Griswold Public Schools. Like, we have such appreciation for the administrators, for central office staff, for the paras, for the parent volunteers, like, because we've done it. And so, and that's not to say that others haven't,
Mhm.
but it's also important for me and in our conversations for us to bring this sense of, where are we going and what do we want to achieve over the course of the next 2 years, 4 years? How can we get more voices in the process and have more conversations? Like, we should be able to ask questions and have those questions answered. And I want to be surrounded by people who think differently than I do. I want to be surrounded by people who make me, like, maybe think about something a little bit differently,
Mhm.
right? And respect that process so that we can bring that to our kids so that they can learn to do that. I mean, we've got great things going on at Griswold Public Schools. Our vision of the graduate, our manufacturing power plant, our music program. We have so many great things happening. So to be a part of the conversation to continue that growth is exciting.
Mhm.
And if the voters decide that, any one of us, honestly, have the ability to be a part of that conversation, then that's great.
If I may,
You may.
she made me think. We really need to celebrate our kids. Our music programs, the plays that we put on, is when our kids sort of step forward and we get the community more involved. I mean, I go to Goodspeed. I'd much rather go to a Griswold play. There's more excitement. There's more going on. I enjoy it more. And that's part of what we have to celebrate with Griswold. And I sit here and I feel, all five of us are celebrating Griswold.
Absolutely. I will say, when I first joined the community, one of my neighbors told me right off the bat, make sure your kids get involved in the drama program. It's the best thing about Griswold. It brings the whole school system together. Kids will make friends with people they didn't even think that they would speak with. It brings everyone together and they're all part of the performance. And it's true.
Yeah.
And I've seen it.
Yep.
I've been part of it.
And to your point, though, that starts with the early education program, like the elementary school music program.
Yep.
We have a new
Absolutely.
educator who's in there who's excited and young. And my grandson came home. He's like, the music group looks great. Like, so happy, right? Middle school staff is fantastic. And then we get up to the high school and it's cream of the crop. I mean, we're so fortunate in our little town This is not an arts magnet school. This is a Griswold Public School. And to have the athletics and the CTE courses and the music courses, we've got good things happening here. Yeah.
I agree wholeheartedly with you. And if you didn't already have my vote, the floor is certain after this conversation. And I hope that the town sees it the same way. And I hope they take the time to sit and watch this and listen and get to know you guys the way that I've gotten an opportunity to a little bit today and at some of our meetings and things like that. Because what we are bringing to this Board of Education slate is really exciting to me as a parent, as somebody who works in the school. Those are the values that you all represent, are the things that I know I care about as a taxpayer and as a dad. And so I'm really excited to see how this goes. So thank you so much for doing
Thank
this
you.
and
for the
for,
chance.
yeah, this has
you.
been awesome. So
And good luck to you too. We're excited to see you and Tina
Yeah.
out there doing your thing.
it'll be fun for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. But thank you everyone for joining us today. This has been an episode of Griswold Select, and these are our Democratic candidates for the Board of Education.